Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Yan. In this episode, you will hear part one of my conversation with Jose Rodriguez, Assistant Vice President of Community and Belonging at College Unbound. More links and information about today's conversation can be found on Digication's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Full episodes of Digication Scholars Conversations can be found on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Yan. My guest today is Jose Rodriguez, Assistant Vice President of Community and Belonging at College Unbound. Welcome, Jose.
Glad to be here.
Jose, I think I met you at a last fall at College Unbound's inauguration of its second president, Adam Bush, and I got to see you speak in a number of occasions, and I was just deeply inspired by you, your work, and what you stand for. So I'm very grateful that we got to have this conversation here today. I think that people are going to really love this, hearing about you and your story.
I appreciate that.
So before we get started, for those listeners who don't know anything about College Unbound, again, I already had sort of mentioned it's its second president's inauguration, which it implies that it's a fairly new school. Why don't you tell us a little bit, about College Unbound and where it is, what it does, and why it's so special. I think it's very special. So go ahead.
Yeah, I think I got to lead with the fact that it is my alma mater, right? So I attended College Unbound. So everything and anything that I say about the school is primarily from alumni perspective or student perspective or student lens, I should say. So College Unbound was started by two gentlemen, Dennis Litke and Adam Bush, in and around 2009. And really, it was meant to be a school within a school at some point, where they were partnering with different institutions to provide just a different way of teaching to a particular population of students that weren't being successful in quote unquote traditional schooling. That humble beginning grew. In 2011, I believe, a call to action was basically put out via social media, where to both Adam and Dennis's surprise, the response from the community was, wow, we've been waiting for a school like this our whole lives. And I think that that's really what started the maybe we just can't be a school within a school conversation. And Adam and Dennis really started laying down the groundwork for what was to come. In 2015, we received state approval to be a standalone college in the state of Rhode Island. A triumph in itself. Those books aren't really open that they're rarely opened. They were opened for us, and we were allowed in. That opened us up to be able to apply for a regional accreditor, which is NECI. And in 2020, after a lot of work, we received full accreditation from NECI.
And now College Unbound offers a bachelor's degree. Am I right?
Correct. So a bachelor's degree in organizational leadership and change. And we now just don't operate in Rhode Island. We're actually in Chicago, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and working on Seattle and South Carolina. So growing. The model is growing because it's something that's needed.
It's amazing, and I would love to talk more about the model itself as well in a bit. But I think that maybe we should talk a little bit more about you as well, Jose. I know that you had talked about College Unbound being set up for people who might not have been successful in traditional schools or traditional sort of, the sort of American dream model of, going to K-12 school and then going to college and then finish a 4-year degree and then going to get a job, that kind of model, right? And I think that you can probably speak to that too, because that's your personal experience. Now you are an alum of College Unbound. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, so I can. It's a somewhat interesting story with a lot of layers. So I'll try to unlayer as much of it as possible. I'm what you consider, or what society would have considered a throwaway kid. I'm from a single parent home, uh, from quote unquote the ghetto, the slums of the slums, and I dropped out of school in the sixth grade. So I had the recipe to not be successful or not to be in academia. Um, because of those choices that I made early on to drop out of school, and to pursue income in various ways, most of which weren't legal, that landed me in prison. But while in prison, I was reintroduced to education, I should say, and I was reintroduced to education on a basic level, meaning I got my GED. And pretty much after you get your GED in prison, there really isn't anything for you to do. So I took a couple of the remedial courses that our community college was offering at the time, with the thought or dream of, when I am released, I am going to go to the same community college and I'm going to get a degree, and that's how I'm going to create change, not just for me but for my family. To my surprise, and I jokingly say this all the time, but it definitely was a pivotal moment. But it was about 2011, um, January of 2011, when I entered uh, our community college as a regular student, not being incarcerated, and I take a regular course load, so full time student, 4 classes, 3 credits each, and one of the classes which I found was probably going to be the most interesting to me was public speaking. Why that was interesting to me is because I had gotten out of prison in 2010, so it had been about a year, and I had spent the last year of that time, the last year working, speaking to kids, uh, violence reduction, preventative work on. So at the core of what I was doing for a living now was speaking to public, maybe not, large groups as if, like a national public speaker or anything, but to me, it was an important part of my journey. And unfortunately, because I speak multiple languages, sometimes I do mispronounce words. And I always say this because it's important to note that just because I mispronounce a word, it isn't because I don't know the meaning of the word or I don't know how to say the word. But for anyone who speaks multiple languages, sometimes the words just get mixed up and lost in translation, as they say. Needless to say, my oral presentation, midterm, I didn't do so well. I mispronounced a bunch of words, but it wasn't that derailed me or that put me on a really on a path of negativity. Was the instructor, quote unquote, and I use instructor, the term instructor very loosely, um, said to me at the end of the class, maybe public speaking isn't a thing that you should pursue because you don't really sound intelligent when you speak. And I say that, and I wore that, as a I walked with that because it was important for me to remember that if I ever saw that quote unquote instructor again, that I'd be able to tell them how wrong they actually were. But without that incident, I would have never found College Unbound. So in that, maybe about 2 weeks after that happened, I had a chance encounter with Adam Bush. He was We had some College Unbound students who were interning at my place of employment, and Adam just came to check in on him. And anybody who knows Adam Bush knows he's a very captivating speaker. So he could, if he engages you in conversation, you're buying whatever he's selling. So that that led to me just being curious about what College and Bout could be, because no, it's a different way of learning. You're going to learn this way. We're going to give you credit for the things that you've already done. Why take classes for things that you've already mastered? And that really piqued my interest. So regardless of the experience that I had at our local community college, I said, I'm going to give it, I'm just going to try one more time at this college thing. And if this doesn't work, then, I'm just not college material. And that's just something that I'm going to have to deal with. Thankfully, I am college material, and I've was able to get out the other side. But that is the example as to why this school is so important, whether in whether for folks who look like me, or folks or kids who are just getting out of high school and are being told by an instructor those words, like they're being limited by the words of the people who are there, who are intended to be there to teach them, and being chopped down in such a way opened up the space for a school like College Unbound to exist.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jose. It's I remember hearing you talk about this, and it was just so inspiring, because I also know Adam, and you're right. He can,
Yeah.
whatever he say jump, and I say how high, and and uh, it was um, it's just incredible to see how many individual lives that College Unbound seems to have touched, but in such an impactful way. I feel like that every alum, everyone that I've met with at College Unbound that have gone through the program have something similar like that to share,
Yeah.
right? That they're, you know, like the traditional college system, whether it be a community college or a K-12 school or whatever it might be, had failed them.
And that's
And
only
yeah,
amplified when you're an adult, right?
yeah,
It's one thing when a system fails you when you're a traditional college age student and you're going straight from high school and you got all these things in place, but it's amplified when you're a working adult who's simply just trying to obtain a degree to better one's life. Um, and it's a story that we hear over and over and over again, to the tune of folks really start to believe that, and I say folks because I felt that way myself, that, all right, maybe I'm just not smart enough. College
mm,
isn't for me. This isn't the time for me. And you immediately start to beat yourself up. So it's a, I'm glad that this space exists. I'm glad that this school exists. And that's the reason why. Because whether we were the folks who initiated the wrong or not, we get to right wrongs for a lot of folks through
mm.
through their educational journey.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, would you like to tell us a little bit about, so how does College Unbound in fact recognize you for who you are and let you be successful? What is that like, what's that actually look like? What does week one actually look like? Like, what is the thing that they have you do that make you feel like, hold on a minute, I am in fact college material?
So it's the sense of community, right? So you're brought into a space where everybody is just loving and caring. So as an institution, we're asking students to bring their all, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Um, and that to me is what community means. You know, I, the word community is in my title, so everything about community has to be right. And knowing that also means that community members aren't perfect, right? No one in the community is perfect, so we have to take folks how they are. And I think that that was the first thing that I recognized doing my first CU gathering and being in that space, having a communal meal with some peers that I would learn to love in just a few weeks, and just being around those folks and their ability or their willingness to just open up and just be free. It wasn't easy for me because of my experience from the community college to actually be as open, as honest as I could be with folks, right? I was afraid that I would be judged and that uh, people would put me in a box as to how I got to where I was and my experiences thus far. However, CU taught me, and just like they've taught others to embrace one story. Once I embraced my story, I just felt a million times more powerful. And as a result of me feeling that power, I believe at least that I've been able to open the door for other people to come in behind me and have similar success.
That's amazing. Do you remember what was your project at CU? What was your first project?
So, uh, and I always state this, right, because although I've been referred to as a colorful extrovert, I'm an introvert by heart, right? And the first time that I had an extroverted moment was during cohort time, and my cohort decided that I would be the voice for my cohort in a debate. We were having a debate, particularly on gun control, and I just made a really. I wish I could remember exactly what I said, but it was so much in the moment, right? I said what I said, and I got people clapped and agreed with me. And I think that that was a very empowering moment.
And that's when you realize
Yeah.
that, hey, I can't do public speaking.
Yes. Yes, that was the moment. But
Yeah.
overall, what as far as like my project or things that I have taken on while being at CU, I started a nonprofit barbershop, right? Um, in a very crowded market. Uh, and CU actually gave me the tools to be able to do that. And the reason why I say it's a crowded market, I was giving quality haircuts to kids for free in a neighborhood that probably had 40 barbershops. So there were a few folks who might have thought I was cutting into their profits by giving away a free haircut, but the reality was is that I was doing intervention work. These kids um, were what the school district would consider troublesome. I wouldn't consider them troublesome, but what the school district would consider troublesome, broken homes, no real plan on finances or anything like that. So I wasn't taking money from them. These were kids that weren't going into their barbershops to begin with because they couldn't afford it.
So I think that we need to break that down even a little bit further for folks, because for many of our listeners who might have been, expecting a typical college experience where you take a course, you read a book on, I don't know, community policies, or acts of community services, or so making social changes, etc. And then you debate and you might write a paper and all of that.
Yeah,
But what you are describing of creating a nonprofit to go in and service people in the real world, to work with real kids, like what you just described, is in fact the project that you did at CU. Is that right?
yeah. So
That's not common for other folks.
it,
I think we need to like make sure that they understand that it wasn't just one of those, like, hypothetically that would be a cool project to do. You actually went and did it.
it
And
so
so did everyone else did their projects
Yep.
like
So
this.
all students at College Unbound are asked to come up with a passion-based project. Uh, Passion-based meaning anything that's going to move their particular community forward, and you know, understanding that community has a different definition for everybody, right? So community could be the neighborhood in which you grew up in, your religious community, your home community. I mean, community as you see it. So come up with a project that's gonna better your community. And at the time, I was doing violence interruption work at a place in Providence called the Nonviolence Institute. Well, at the time, it was called the Institute for the Study and Practice of Nonviolence. Um, they changed the name, and I think for the better because it's a lot shorter. Um, Needless to say, I was working with kids who, quote unquote, were troublesome, but I would notice small things about them, meaning, hygiene, personal hygiene wasn't good. And those are things that are taught. So I figured that if I could basically kill two birds with one stone, I can teach them about hygiene, give them a quality haircut, and also talk to them about violence reduction strategies so that they didn't overreact or snap on a teacher whenever things got rough. And some of the things that I learned, one is that just the feeling of being properly groomed allows you to feel better about yourself. And if you feel better about yourself, your reaction to things are a little bit different. And then, second, which was something that hit really close to home while working with that population, was that a lot of these kids get labeled as being bad, defiant, troublesome. But in reality, some of these kids were just hungry. They would act up on a Friday because they knew that once I eat this lunch on Friday, I don't know if I'm going to have food till Monday morning when I get to class for breakfast. So it actually, through this program and just being able, through the barbershop and being able to have just simple conversations with them, I was able to take those conversations and then go back to the schools like, these are the issues that your kids are facing, and this is the reason why they're acting the way that they're acting. And in essence, making the community better, right?
I think that, you know, I think that that's one of the things that makes me so excited and so drawn to what College Unbound is doing. You know, you never for a moment underestimate your students themselves, and they come in and you believe that they can do the work, and they can do the work. They go and actually do the work, and they all prove that they can do it. College Unbound has an incredible retention and graduation rate, um, and and that every student is required to do these projects, and they're not just school projects. These are real projects that has real impact on people's
Yep.
lives, and some live on, right? And depending on what the person does, I guess. But these are not insignificant things. They have real um, they have real customers. They have real people they serve. They have real impact. And those kids that you worked with, that you gave haircuts to, I'm sure had positively changed their lives in ways that you probably couldn't even track.
And yes, and the only reason why I say yes to that is because recently, we, this past spring, we enrolled quite a few folks, and I'm just sitting at the start of the cohort, just giving our spiel, welcoming everyone. And one of the women that was in, one of our new students who was in the audience, walked up to me and she said, "Hey, you don't remember me?" And of course, I smiled and was like, "Of course, I remember you. You're." Uh, so she tells me her name, and she's like, "You used to give my son haircuts." And okay, like, at that point I was like, "Okay, you got me. I really don't know who you are, and I used to cut a lot of kids' hairs, but so like, give me a little bit more." She's like, "Well, he's so and so, and he was always getting kicked out of school, et cetera, et cetera. But something around the time that you were giving them a haircut, something in his mind shifted, and he decided that that's the avenue that he wanted to take. So he became a barber. I didn't know. So he became a barber. And, after the conversation with her, I did look him up, and he's a very successful barber. I mean, like $100 a haircut type barber,
Nice.
which is remarkable. And I'm actually feeling kind of old right now because he was a little kid and he's already an adult. But yeah, he also, for back to school, does all kids free at his barbershop, all
Amazing.
kids free.
Amazing.
So that one
That's
gesture
amazing.
of giving him a free
Yeah.
haircut has had the trickle effect of, one, him finding a career for himself, but also him wanting to pay it forward, and that kids for school will get a free haircut at the beginning of the year from him.
See, I think that this is one of those things that, and I also want to talk, maybe I want to talk a little bit about the timeline in which these things happen in comparison to a regular, let's say, a college experience. I can tell you, like, this is obviously a very much of a summary, or sort of a lot of approximation here, but students in many colleges are now introduced to things like service learning, where they go out to the community and do something. Okay. But they are typically not doing that until they have been deemed that they have the basic writing skills and the basic reading skills, and they have to go through a number of gen ed courses, etc. So maybe it's 2-3 years into it that now you're a sophomore, you are a junior, you're a senior, you have the opportunity to go and do it for one semester. At College Unbound, that's not what it's like. Can you tell us a little bit about that, sort of that, like the equivalent of that in College Unbound? At what point do you, like you get in there first day, right? And at what point are you doing this kind of project? What point are you trusted to do this kind of project?
From day one, you come in
Okay.
from the recruitment process. You're being taught through what a project can look like, so you start to think about what the possibilities are. But we're a regionally accredited college, so we have all the same rigor than any other institution has. However, um, because we are working with adult populations who have had tremendous success, whether in community, in work, or what have you, they come with a lot of lived experience. And that lived experience through our learning in public department gets translated into college credit. So we've had students who have come in with 0 credits and graduated in 18 months with a bachelor's degree because they were able to put portfolios together for all the experience, all the lived experiences that they had. I think that the anomaly or the expectation for colleges to have folks take courses on things that they've already mastered is redundant, and we don't do
Mhm.
that here. Our our person who runs the learning from experience department, Elizabeth Cologne, is also a person who the program was kind of developed around because she was the first person to benefit from. I think Liz did it in like 14 months, came in with about 12 credits, and in about 14 months had her bachelor's degree and was on to getting her master's, only because she was able to get through her bachelor's at such a fast paced. And I don't mean that to say it lightly, that she made it through in a fast pace, because she had put in the work and all the other things she had done in her life, right? We just gave her credit for it. And I think that for a lot of our students, once they realize that all their lived experience actually has a value, that it's not a thing they just did, it was something actually that they learned with learning outcomes, whether they saw it as such or not in the moment, we make sure that we teach them how to get that out of any experience.
And I think it's just really remarkable. I know that the audience, the typical student in coming to College Unbound, like you said, have a rich lived experience already, so they can translate that. And I think that, however, I mean, literally going back to, even I know Dennis Litke, his high school project, called the Met School, and the Big Picture, I think it's called the Big Picture Company, that
Big
makes,
picture learning.
the Big Picture Learning, that makes the Met School, um, draws from a very similar set of ideas too, right? The high school kids are not, and they were never too young to go in and start a project.
Sure.
They were never too inexperienced to say you're not allowed to do something. And in fact, I think one of the things that's most exciting about it is that it's almost like you start your project because that's something you are so passionate about. In your case, you see that the world needs a solution for these unnecessary violence, because kids just did not know how to act otherwise. So you know it, and it's something that it's hard to read about from a book.
Yeah.
It's hard to read about from a book because a book could have mentioned it, but it would have been a paragraph in a bigger book somewhere, right? And you don't there's it doesn't point you to go and say, I'm now going to spend the next couple years to go in and make a difference in this area of society, right? So I think that it's a really stark difference in my mind. But then once you have found your passion, once you found some meaning in that, it makes the idea of, the way I look at it is, you might have not done well in public speaking in that one course back in a community college, but you certainly have had to do a lot of public speaking, right? With either the kids or with groups of people thereafter. But because now you're doing it with that passion, with that drive, you just do it. You just have to do it, and you get it done, and you learn it. And I believe that people learn things when the drive comes from a place of passion and a place of purpose and meaning. They overcome so much more. They work so much harder. They do things much faster. They learn deeper. I think there is something about that makes it possible for College Unbound graduates to finish the program quicker than a typical 4-year program.
But
They're running the whole time. They're not sitting around waiting for someone to feed them, hey, this is what you might want to take.
but it's a matter of the word drive, right? Sticks out to me in your comments, only because for a lot of our students, they come with drive because we're working with a particular population. Like, they only know work, 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 and I'm gonna get it done because this is what I got to do to provide for my family. They never see themselves as academics because no one ever told them that they were. So the second that they get acknowledged as such, it's like an almost instant aha moment where they're like, oh, I can do this. And once that I can do this attitude begins, it's only no one's stopping them. And I think that for myself and for others, I think that's the reason that we go through CU, we go through College Unbound, and then all of a sudden find ourselves in graduate programs. Um, because now we have been empowered to learn. We have been empowered to understand that we can learn. It was just the institution that wasn't right for us. It wasn't that we weren't right. And it's always a good conversation when I'm having folks who are about to graduate come to my office to ask me about, hey, what program do you think I should go to next? And bright-eyed and just like eager to just keep learning.
Here's a preview of what's coming up next in part 2 of my conversation with Jose Rodriguez, Assistant Vice President of Community and Belonging at College Unbound.
CU's model lends itself to being able to teach wherever there is a need. If you have a conference room, we can come in and, that then becomes College Unbound. We don't have a building. And I don't think that we're ever intended to have buildings. I think that the motto is that we will always teach in communities.